Before we start analyzing our next two lines, we're going to have a little segment to explain this word, marauder. Tidbit time! The word marauder means a wanderer or a person who's often searching for things most likely to steal. Thank you, Samantha, for that lovely tidbit time. Anyway, so as we see, the word marauder means like a wanderer, and we think that these two lines, Emily-Dickinson is trying to show a contradiction between her two views on religion. The first line, wherefore marauder art thou here, is the wanderer, like, I don't know if this is where I want to be with my religion, and the whole idea of stealing is the kind of idea of like wanting to, that's kind of related to the idea of like when somebody is dying, that's when they want to become closer to God to help save them, like the last moments of their life.
And also just like a marauder is someone who is wandering. Essentially, we are all wandering around the earth, trying to search for our meaning in life.
And then we see that she talks about because their love is sweet, and we think that maybe she's trying to say like the love from God that the worshipers of God feel is also something that she could see herself being a fan of, but she doesn't know. But she's talking about how it can be sweet, and the whole idea of the sir is capitalized, being like subservient, and yet like there's still the love there that is sweet.
That we are underneath God, but He's still our God, and so we have this obligation to be people of God and people for Him. And also just the whole love is another biblical allusion because God is love in the Bible.
Alright, so we have the next three lines of our poem.
We are the flower, thou the sun, forgive us if as days decline we nearer steal to thee.
And we see a lot of biblical references as well as death and life all coming together within these three lines.
Because the flower is, as we said, it represents us as worshipers, us as humans, and we are of course alive, and the flower is alive. But it also has decline in this, this little stanza. And so that's declining in life towards death.
And we see biblical references with thou and thee. And also, like, forgive us, Lord, our daily bread. And we also see a lot of capitalizations. The flower and the sun, like, the flowers are the people, the worshipers, the sun is God, the light, and then thou and thee, those are, like, the biblical references to, like, emphasize the fact that they're, like, to the Bible and that they're, like, important and should stand out.
And also, just this first line really shows the whole biblical nature of it. And just the whole, we are humans, you are God, because it literally says, we are the flower, thou the sun.
And we think that that's trying to say, like, we are the humans, and yet we want to live like God. We want to be living in His shining light, like being good people and following His word.
Which also goes back to the golden walk earlier in the poem.
So here we have the last three lines of our poem, and they read as, enamored of the parting west, the peace, the flight, the amethyst, night's possibility. And we see a lot of references to death in this part. We have the parting west, the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. It's like the end of a life, the end of a day.
And just also the end of the poem. In the beginning we have a lot of life references because it's like the birth of the poem, the birth of humans, of life. And then towards the end you get the conclusion of the poem, the conclusion of life, or death, which is shown in just about every line of this last stanza.
And then we have the peace, the flight, and the amethyst. And before we begin discussing this line, we're going to have a little segment about the word amethyst.
Tidbit time! Right now we are going to be talking about amethysts and the use of amethysts in Emily Dickinson's 106th poem. So, the amethyst has many meanings, has accumulated these meanings throughout history, and one of these meanings is that it is a dreamstone to help insomnia. And how we saw insomnia was life and the inability to sleep eternally, aka death, which is a very common theme in Dickinson's poetry, and just so how the amethyst relates to helping the person get from life into death.
Thank you, Professor Kimberly, for that wonderful tidbit time.
You're welcome.
So now we learned that the amethyst has many properties that are related to this poem. So we have the peace, which is Emily Dickinson's acceptance of death. She's like welcoming it.
She's not going into death with a whole bunch of anxiety. and will move on into the next life if she believes that there is one.
And then we have the flight, which we believe is just like the journey itself of the transition from life into death.
Your soul just leaving the earth, leaving your body.
Hi, my name is Leroy, and I'm going to talk about criticisms. Well, not me, but I'm introducing. Okay, well, I gotta go, but enjoy the criticisms. Bye.
Hello, my name is Thomas Johnson, and I'm here to talk to you about my essay on Emily Dickinson.
In the days you follow soft the sun, the next to last line is the peace, the flight, the amethyst. This is Emily Dickinson using the stone, the amethyst, to help represent death. It is a part of the death. The two are one and the same. We see this because the amethyst has many healing qualities. See, and my poem that I discuss in poem 712. We see the line, and wedge cannot divide conviction, that granite base, though none be on our side, suffices us. We see, again, the use of a rock, the granite base, as something that is unpenetrable. You cannot pry this, you cannot move it or shape it, because it is very strong. This is a representative of death in that we cannot move death. This also relates to a poem that you guys read in your class this week. The poem by Emily Dickinson that starts with, "Safe in their alabaster chambers." Dickinson goes on to talk about the rafters of satin and roof of stone. Again, this is the rock, the stone, that makes it unable to escape your death. You are stuck in your state of death forever. And all three of these poems come together to talk about how death is certain like rock. You cannot move rock, you cannot move death. And so that is why I, Thomas Johnson, have come here to talk to your class today. Thank you.
John, and I wrote a criticism on Emily Dickinson and how she was a nobody, but yet again, a somebody. Okay, the first thing to remember about Emily Dickinson is that she was a gardener, and that she had her very own conservatory in the back of her house. The flowers that she refers to in this poem, poem 106, presumably are from said garden, and she is referring to her own hobby in this poem. And just how through the daisy following the sun, she's referring to religion. This garden that she cherished so very much was a place of thinking and of reflection, and also of prayer for Emily. And so it is just a reminder in this poem about how the flower is from her own garden, and how it is in a place that she is so confused about religion and just what comes after this life. Thank you, and enjoy the poem.